Welcome to the class. We are going to talk about two very specific and salient features of language which are known as rhythm and pitch. These are two features. They are also known as extralinguistic features. They are prosodic features, meaning keep in mind the two terms, rhythm and pitch. As a matter of fact, or as a matter of coincidence, these two terms are not new to us. We often hear these two terms even as a borrowed one in different languages when people speak and people mean different things with these two terms. It won't be fair for me to give you a list of the context in which people use these two terms, but the least I can say is the following. These two terms are sometimes metaphoric in nature. People use these two terms, rhythm and pitch, as metaphors meaning different things about speech. Of course, what's common is people use these two terms as features of speech. We are going to look at these two things in a slightly little systematic way for us to understand first what they are and how they work in language. Like you know, for learning language, there are a lot of things that we need to pay attention to. Our goal is to learn communicative confidence. In other words, we are trying to learn the rules and methods of communications, everything that is important for learning tricks of communications so that we can effectively communicate with another person, talk, convey our messages, meaning, and in a very essential sense, quote unquote, win the person. Winning the person means keeping the person on your side. In other words, it also means becoming good with that person, leaving a good impression with that person. So, with that goal, we are looking at communicative confidence. You know the difference between communicative competence and communicative confidence. We definitely need to acquire rules of communications, learn the tricks of communications so that we can talk to people. At the same time, communicative confidence means we need to develop confidence that we can communicate properly. And for that confidence, the key comes from accuracy, because we reach fluency through accuracy. Fluency with accuracy in the target language is important. And in this case, our target language is English. As you know, we all want to communicate with others effectively when we use English. It should become an automatic expression for us. When we speak the language, it must not look like we are struggling or even putting in efforts. That's the target, that's the goal. And for that, we are looking at various patterns of language. And in particular, we are looking at those patterns, the way they get processed in human mind while learning the language. And our understanding is that if we look at those patterns, then we don't need to memorize anything about how it works in language, and we also understand that it will yield impact on production, in the sense that when we speak, when we communicate, these things are going to show up. In that order and in that process, it is important to take a note of rhythm and pitch. Let's see what these two things are and take a look at these things with some examples in order to understand them. It helps to know the meaning of some of these things, particularly when they have become metaphoric in nature, and people use these things with meaning different things. In Greek, rhythm means flow, and that's a key point. So, rhythm is a feature that we notice in the flow when we speak. In Hindi, it means tal, or even more accurately, it means lay. Those of you who are familiar with this would understand what these two terms mean. At this point, I feel we don't need to describe what lay means to the speakers of Hindi. Let me also add, if you are interested in singing and music and dance or art forms of various types, you would also understand the meaning of tal and lay. Lay and tal, they are systematic and technical, and for learners to achieve those art forms, they have to put in specific efforts in these areas to acquire the art form, to master the art form. For the speakers of language, these things are embedded and inbuilt. We only need to pay attention to them so that we can make our speech and communication better. It's embedded, and we also need to notice these things when others, that is the speakers, those who speak English natively, how they employ these things in their speech so that they convey what they want to say properly and sound emphatic, effective, and impressive. These are not mere terms. These emphatic, effective, and impressive, these are not simply the terms. People sound that way when we employ the rules properly. For example, if we need to keep our pitch low in a context, in a certain context, and we don't know, and we try to raise the pitch up, it becomes out of the context, and therefore it will sound odd, let alone impressive. So we need to understand these things. Sometimes we pay attention to others when they speak. Sometimes we look at these things in a mechanized way to get them within us. So these are the two terms I thought will be important for people to know, tal and lay. All languages have rhythm. And before we notice the words and sentences of other languages, that is, let's take here the target language, English, we notice the rhythm inbuilt in the language. We notice it best when we hear someone speak. In other words, when native speakers of the language speak, they employ that rhythm on their own. And we notice it, we get it, but we don't get that it is rhythm. So in a subconscious fashion, what we notice is called rhythm. And therefore, it becomes metaphoric that we say things like, I don't find any rhythm in life. I don't see any rhythm in your efforts. So there are a lot of ways in which people use these terms. But actually, so rhythm means the pattern in which we see certain embedded structure, embedded rhythm. So in music, in songs and dance, we see it best. So that is, in art forms also, we see rhythm very well. Each line takes about the same time, contains nearly equal number of syllables. So here I am talking about poetry. When you read poetry, rhythm plays very crucial role. So sometimes you see we have just few words and some lines have more words. But the writer tries to keep the number of syllables the same in both the line so that they don't lose the rhythm. They don't lose the continuity of the rhythm so that they can create, so that it helps them create an impact in what they want to say. Just as they employ that in poetry, in dance, in music, in several other art forms, it is also employed in language to convey different kinds of messages. We can compare it with the patterns of steps in dance. So those of you who know dance, you know about the significance of steps in dance. It's not unstructured. There is a systematicity underlying the steps of dance. And those steps also have those steps can be organized in different patterns to create different kind of impact, and that variation is brought in through rhythm. So it's another name for repeated patterns, whether it could be sounds or in sentences it is about arrangement of sounds and syllables as a unit of a speech, and in dance it's about arrangement of steps. In music it's arrangement of notes, and in speech it's arrangement of syllables. So and these are also noted through pause group. Certain pauses can be grouped together, and we can speak only a certain number of syllables at a time. So all these groups may have one or two more or fewer syllables, but they mostly take similar length of time to speak. So the number of syllables in order to create rhythm is also stress timed. And they may also have comparable number of prominent and other syllables. So when we have multiple syllables, some are prominent and some are not prominent, and prominent here simply means stressed. So the pattern of organizing them creates rhythm, or is called rhythm, and that is applicable in multiple ways. The variation in that creates different impact. including the one in language. So this is important thing for you to keep in mind. So all these groups may have one or fewer syllables, and they may be comparable in terms of their prominence. And without this rhythm, if you remove the pattern, then the language, then the speech could be monotonous. I'm not sure if you have heard machine generated speech. In movies or certain serials, you hear machines or robots speak in a particular way to make it sound like robot is speaking, and to create the distinction between human speech and robot speech. What they are doing is they are altering the rhythm. Human beings can, even machines can be taught to speak. That's called speech processing, and there is a science underlying this, and science with in the field of designing intelligent machines. Scientists have reached a point where machines can do fairly good amount of function in terms of speech. It won't do everything, but the fact that it cannot do everything or it won't do everything cannot dismiss the point that it can do a lot of things. And the credit goes to numerous scientists and researchers working in these directions, and these technologies have made our life way simpler. At a click of the machine or in our hands, we kind of control everything that we need in daily life. If you look at the machines that you use, it kind of becomes unthinkable to imagine life without these machines, and it's that friendly and that usable, and we incorporate those machines in our life so much that life without those machines or impact of those machines kind of becomes impossible. Try leaving them outside your life. Now, coming back to the point, the machine language at times is monotonous because there is no rhythm in that. Machines cannot create rhythmic patterns. However, humans can do that, and that's one very crucial distinction between human language, that is natural language, and machine language. Maybe after several years, like now machines can speak and do several functions, machines can produce rhythms as well. But as of now, it doesn't. And so what we are trying to draw here is creating rhythm through altering patterns is an important part of our language, and we need to be careful about that in speaking, because that can change the meaning of the sentence, what we want to say, what we intend to mean, and so on. I just want to give you a few examples of that, how they change things. So we have a few sentences that we have taken from some source, and please read aloud the italicized words with stress. So you have a sentence here, read them aloud, but stress the italicized words. It's the same sentence in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words, and in 7 sentences, different words are stressed, and see how they change the meaning. The same sentence. Without any alteration, we say, I say this sentence, I thought your brother was a bus conductor. I thought your brother was a bus conductor. Depending upon what you stress in this sentence, which word you stress, it changes the meaning. So the first sentence has I as a stressed one. So we will read it as, I thought your brother was a bus conductor. Now read the second one, then you will see the difference in the meaning. I thought your brother was a bus conductor. I thought your brother was a bus conductor. So in the first sentence, I is being stressed, and in the second sentence, thought is being stressed. So see how it changes the meaning. We have given it in square brackets. So in the first one, I thought your brother was a bus conductor means not someone else thought. It was me who thought. I thought your brother was a bus conductor. So you thought that I knew that he was a bus conductor. That becomes the meaning of the sentence. Look at the third one. I thought your brother was a bus conductor. Here, the sentence means not someone else's brother. I thought your brother was a bus conductor. Meaning, I'm talking about brother, not anyone else, not sister, not friend, not someone else. I thought your brother was a bus conductor. I didn't know he still is a bus conductor. I thought your brother was a bus conductor. Meaning, I'm trying to stress the time in past, intending to say that I didn't know that he is still a bus conductor. I thought your brother was a bus conductor. I thought your brother was a bus conductor. Meaning, before I thought he was an orchestral instructor, conductor or something. So he was working, but he was working for something else, not for bus. And then finally, I thought your brother was a bus conductor, not a bus driver or a manager or something else. So you can do this exercise for yourself, and you can do this exercise for various other sentences as well, to see how stressing one part of the sentence, one word in a sentence, can change the meaning. Imagine the change in such a way, alternating these changes and creating different stress patterns to create particular rhythm. And that is a very technical thing, but we in normal speech take these things for creating certain impact, and I'll talk about that as well. At the same time, if you look at, so that's about rhythm, stress. Now, let me talk briefly about pitch, and then we go to other parts. So, pitch is an important component of accentuation or prominence, both at the level of individual word and at the level of utterance, that is a sentence. That is, according to Martha 1996, so she defines it as an important component of accentuation, like where we put the stress to bring in what we want to make prominent in a shorter utterances or the full sentence or just in a word. The pitch of the voice is determined by frequency of vibration in vocal cord. So we have a vocal cord in our oral tract, and when we speak, for certain words they vibrate more, certain sounds they vibrate more, and for certain sounds they don't vibrate that much. So the frequency of that vibration in the vocal cord creates pitch, and that has an impact on creating rhythm. So when we put syllable, stressed syllable, number of syllables in a word, and we select words according to that, and then we create an utterance. All these things are technical in nature, but in normal speech also we tend to automatically organize these things for creating certain impact. So going back to pitch again, pitch is property that allows the ordering of sounds on a frequency-related scale. And pitches are compared as high and low. So, when we talk about pitch, we can say high pitch or low pitch. So, the rise and fall, so when we rise, this is called high, and when we let it fall, that's called low pitch. It conveys various emotions. For example, try saying thank you to somebody. You can find out the difference when you say the same thing. So, thank you is such an expression that we use often in our speech. So, you try with, on the basis of how you say it, on the basis of your low pitch or high pitch, people can figure out whether you sincerely mean it, or you are indifferent about it, or you are just saying something. So, the low pitch indicates at times things like shock, dullness, guilt, etc. At the same time, if we are excited about something, we are joyous, ecstatic, triumphant, and in those cases, automatically our pitch becomes higher. However, a balanced pitch results in a clear and effective tone. It helps us avoid becoming monotonous. So, a variety of pitch should be used to hold the audience. When you are making a speech, when you are talking to somebody, when you are trying to convey something, we ought to control our pitch pattern. And we need to be careful in terms of what kind of rhythm, that is the pattern, it creates. And we don't need to be too careful about it so that we are unable to speak, but at the same time we need to say these things, we need to say things with for creating proper impact. Watch yourself, watch others speak the language, English, and watch yourself speak your own language, and see how we use these things in our languages. So, I want to tell you, Virginia Woolf is a very famous poet. Having discussed pitch and rhythm with you, I want you to read this, what Virginia Woolf has to say about rhythm. She's writing a letter to Whiter Sackville West, and she writes, "Style is very simple matter. It's all rhythm." Here, she means it as pattern. Once you get that, you can't use the wrong word. So she's talking her poetic skills. So, style is very simple matter. It's all rhythm. Once you get that, you can't use the wrong words. But on the other hand, here am I, sitting after half the morning, crammed with ideas and visions and so on, and can't dislodge them for lack of the right rhythm. Now, this is very profound. What rhythm is, and goes far deeper than any words. A sight and emotion creates this wave in the mind long before it makes words to fit it, and in writing, one has to recapture this and set this working, which has nothing apparently to do with words. And then as it breaks and trembles in the mind, it makes words to fit it. Please read this thing a couple of times to understand what she is trying to say. This is an important application. She's talking about an important point, and this will help you understand rhythm properly. At the same time, another famous English scholar, David Crystal, in 2005, in an essay, How Language Works, talks about pitch and rhythm. Pitch, loudness, and tempo combine to make up language's expression of rhythm. Languages vary greatly in the way in which they mark rhythmical contrasts. English uses stressed syllables produced at roughly regular intervals of time in fluent speech, he means, and separated by unstressed syllables, a stressed timed rhythm which we can tap out in a tum-a-tum way as in traditional line of poetry. So he's again talking about application of rhythm for poetry. The curfew tolls the knell of parting day. In French, the syllables are produced in a steady flow, resulting in a machine gun effect. A syllable timed rhythm, which is more like a ratatatata. In Latin, it was the length of the syllable, whether long or short, which provided the basis of rhythm. In many Oriental languages, it is pitch height, high versus low. So, he's talking about patterns in different languages and talks about how it works in different languages. So, I invite you again to read it, to understand the discussions that we have had so far about rhythm and pitch. Here are a couple of activities that I want you to do. So, first of all, this is a very famous poem, a psalm of life, and you read it. What will also help is to listen to this poem. This is freely and widely available online. You can read it here and then stop and listen to this for yourself. And what we need to do is to mark its rhythm by highlighting the stressed syllable. So, you read it yourself first. You may be lost because we don't know the pattern. Therefore, I am asking you to listen to this online. And when you listen to this at this point, then come back to this and find out what we are talking about by highlighting stressed syllable. See in their speech, in their way of singing, in their way of reading this poem aloud, which syllables are becoming stressed. So I'll just read a few lines here. What the heart of the young man said to the psalmist. Tell me not in mournful numbers. Here you have 8 syllables. Life is but an empty dream. Here you have 7 syllables. For the soul is dead that slumbers. This has 8 syllables. And things are not what they seem. It has 7 syllables. Life is real, life is earnest, and the grave is not its goal. So, here the slant lines are marking pauses. Okay. So, what you need to do is, so this goes on and on. We want you to just listen to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines and mark the stressed syllables in that after listening to that. You can do the same thing for the rest of it. Again, find this out and listen to this online for yourself to find out the same thing that we have done for Psalm of Life, that see the stressed syllable here. See how somebody is singing this with rhythm. When I was just a little girl, I asked my mother, what will I be? Will I be pretty? Will I be rich? Here is what she said to me. I sound the way I sound to you because I don't know the stress pattern. I don't know and because I don't know the stressed syllables in singing, intended stressed syllables to create particular meaning, I am making it monotonous that you don't want to hear. When you hear someone trained singing this thing the way it is intended, you will understand what creates that impact. And that will be, and if you mark the stressed syllables here, you will get that is what is creating rhythm underlying this poem. So it's a long poem, but we want you to look at that. And likewise, what you can also do is, there is another popular poem, made into a film. It's a play called My Fair Lady, and here is little text from that. Do the same thing for this. So we are giving you 3 texts. 1, Psalm of Life, 1 from Doris Day, and 1, this My Fair Lady. Short excerpts. You can do more exercises, but all you need to do is to listen to that and mark a stressed syllable in the paragraphs that we have given you. Try to speak following those patterns. You will get the rhythm of that intended rhythm to create that meaning. And in short, to conclude, all I want to say is understanding pitch and rhythm as extralinguistic factor for communication, for understanding how we convey different meanings. We are going to make our speech impactful in that order. We are going to make ourselves impressive for others to hear. That's the intention. That's the goal. Hope this helps. Thank you so much. Until we meet next time. Looking forward to hearing from you.